Amazon has taken the Indian investigating agency, the ED, the Enforcement Directorate, to court, seeking to cancel an investigation into one of its its 2019 deal with the Future Group. Amazon has filed a writ petition in the Delhi High Court against ED, seeking clarification on the unnecessary summons issued to their employees. The US e-commerce giant said in its filing to the Delhi High Court that the investigation is a fishing and roving expedition, alleging that the ED had sought privileged information not connected to the Future Group deal, which the Amazon is now saying tantamounts to harassment. Now, Enforcement Directorate is probing Amazon's 1,430 crore investment in the Future Group for suspected violations in foreign investment laws. Now, multiple Amazon executives, including its India head, had been summoned by the ED in recent weeks, which the company feels is unnecessary harassment in their functioning in India. So the question raised now is on whether the ED is really exceeding the scope and bar of its functioning, its jurisdiction in investigating into this case, seeking information that goes beyond the purview of the case, as Amazon is alleging. To discuss this issue, let me welcome K.K. Manan, senior advocate, and also Dr. Pavan Duggal, cyber law expert, joining us. Good evening, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. I'll come to you in a bit. I'm going to go across to my colleague Meenakshi first to tell us more about this case, just for clarity. Meenakshi, good evening. Why has Amazon sued the Enforcement Directorate? Here is a case of an investigating agency being sued by a global entity. What is the current status, Meenakshi?
Well, absolutely, Afrida. We're talking about Amazon, which is a global retail giant, taking a premier investigating agency of India, which is the Enforcement Directorate, to court. And that in itself, underlines the significance of this particular petition, which runs over 800 pages. It's quite a voluminous plea that's been filed by the Amazon Group before the Delhi High Court. And before we get into the details, it was listed for a hearing, but the Honorable Justice was on leave today, because of which the matter couldn't be taken up today. But be that as it may, what this raises is several questions pertaining to the investigating agency's role. Because this is not a fly-by-night operator. We are talking about the Amazon Group. As you have also just emphasized, it's a global retail giant with worldwide credibility, which is now calling this particular investigation of the ED as a fishing and roving exercise. This is what the Amazon Group is saying in this 800 plus page petition filed before the Delhi High Court. And not just this, the Amazon Group is also stating as to how the directions by the Enforcement Directorate asking for disclosure of legally privileged documents and litigation privilege information is derogatory to the principles. So they are obviously citing various provisions of Indian laws and constitutional provisions as well to say that ED, or rather allege that ED is, exceeding the scope and spectrum of its investigations. And like you just mentioned, Amazon is also stating as to how multiple Amazon executives, including their India head, have been already summoned by the ED in recent weeks, and the investigations have caused unnecessary harassment. So these are serious issues which obviously have to be tested and vetted legally. The matter will be before the Delhi High Court. There is the forum of Supreme Court also, which will be eventually available. But the fact of the matter is this, that in a disparate case pertaining to the PMLA statute, recently we have seen some terse observations also come by from the Supreme Court directed at investigating agencies, particularly the ED and the CBI. In a disparate matter, the Supreme Court has said as to how the agencies really need to be very careful because sometimes the purpose of the statute law can get defeated in overzealousness. So that's the question really, which lies at the bottom of this exercise. How and to what extent will ED be able to justify its scope and spectrum of investigations before the Delhi High Court, especially when it's a global retail giant like Amazon making these charges?
Yes, very interesting. Meenakshi, you've put out the main points for us loud and clear. Thank you so much for joining us. What I find absolutely interesting is that here you have an international brand, a global e-commerce giant, actually citing the rule book, the Indian rule book and the Indian constitution to an Indian investigating agency saying, look, you're exceeding your brief. We cannot give you this kind of privileged information. That does not come under your purview. And that is why they have now requested the Delhi High Court to pass an interim order staying all investigations, inquiries and summons or proceedings that have been commenced and conducted by the Enforcement Directorate. The plea was supposed to be heard today. However, it could not be heard today. It was slated for hearing today in the Delhi High Court. Let me go across now to our guest this evening. Mr. Manan, coming to you first. Now, Amazon says the investigating agency is indulging in a phishing exercise. The ED is carrying out the investigation in a manner that is beyond their scope and power, like you heard my colleague saying, under India's foreign exchange laws. Where do you stand on this, sir?
You see, the basic law of the land is that the courts will not interfere in the investigation. Court can't direct the investigating agency how to investigate the matter by them. Amazon is not above the law, especially if they are indulged in any money laundering. Then if there is prima facie case against them, if there is a substance against them, the ED, that particular investigating agency, are very well in power to summon them, to question them, and so far as overboard or power is not there, I don't agree with that. I don't agree at all. And in fact, if substance is there, prima facie, then they are within the preview, within the law, that they can summon just to assist them whether any offense is made out or not. They must have registered a preliminary inquiry. If in a preliminary inquiry something will not be found, then they will be scot-free. There will not be any problem. But the question is that if they think that they are above the law, or the law, Indian law, or the Constitution of India does not apply to Amazon, then they are mistaken. They are living in a fool's paradise. Then another thing, you see, the law laid down by the Honorable Supreme Court, various judgments of the Honorable Supreme Court as well as Honorable High Courts, that during the investigation, court will only interfere in the rare of the rarest case where they will find, yes, of course, prima facie case is not made out and they are being harassed. You remember that one, I will not name the official of the FERA, at that time FERA was there. One particular officer was usually summoning each and every the industrialists of the country. He was harassing. Ultimately, CBI registered a case against him and he was dismissed from the services. Ultimately, Supreme Court given the relief to him, and the Honorable High Court, Delhi High Court also given the relief to him. But at the same time, if a particular investigating agency or the investigating officer harassing somebody, then action can be taken by his even a superior, by the higher authorities, and they could have approached. If higher authority does not take any action against a particular investigating agency or a particular investigating officer, then they can approach the CBI, then they can approach
so
the Honorable High Court or the Honorable
recourses
Supreme Court.
available.
But the question is,
yes,
again I'm coming on a point, whether the court will be able to interfere in the investigation. That is the point in this case.
Yes, they've moved court. We'll see how that goes. But the point of the matter here is this is a corporate entity with large global presence that is questioning the functioning of ED. I want to ask you, Dr. Duggal, and this is a familiar narrative, whether it is Facebook or Twitter, this has come into question time and again, whether they will have to operate within the laws of the land or whether the investigating agencies are in some way exceeding their brief, as Amazon is alleging here. The directions by ED asking for disclosure of legally privileged documents, that is where the matter of contention is over here. That is where Amazon is saying that you are crossing your limit, crossing the powers given to you. Dr. Duggal.
Since the matter is sub judice, we'll refrain from commenting on the same. But from a legal standpoint, it's very, very clear that there are immense amount of powers given to investigation for investigating agencies. However, these powers are not absolute. In certain circumstances, the court can definitely have a judicial review of what action has been taken. But if the investigating authority is asking for some information in pursuance of the powers given to them, then the logical approach will be to either give the information, or unless until you are saying that the information cannot be given, then the matter will have to be taken up by the court. We have to be mindful of the fact that as of today evening when we talk, India does not have any dedicated data protection law. We also do not have any dedicated law on privacy. So as such, all these entities who are ultimately intermediaries will have to fall back upon the Indian cyber law, being the Information Technology Act 2000, and various rules and regulations given thereunder, including the IT Rules 2021. Now, under the IT rules, all these intermediaries, these big companies, are mandated to assist the law enforcement agencies in the detection, investigation, and prosecution of not just various cyber crimes, but also the various criminal activities. Now, if in pursuance of this, there is some disconnect, obviously the matter is before the court. We'll have to wait the decision of the court. But these entities who are intermediaries have to fundamentally realize one basic ground truth, and that they as intermediaries are mandated to exercise due diligence while discharging their obligations as intermediaries under Section 79 of the IT Act. Now, due diligence means under Section 79, complying with the law of the land and the rules and regulations made thereunder. So if under the law of the land, the investigating agency is asking you for certain information in pursuance of the powers given to them, logically that will have to be complied with, unless until the court decides to step in and set aside that particular direction. So it will be very interesting to see how the Delhi High Court looks at this entire issue. But ultimately, the foundation issue is very clear. As a service provider, as an intermediary, you have to comply with the law. And if that law requires you to give information, you will have no choice but to give information.
So I think both the experts actually agree on that point. But Mr. Manan, one last point to you about the summons issued to their executives. And we know that this has happened with the content head of Amazon Prime as well, with the OTT platform. Content head Aparna Purohit was also summoned, and that also was a protracted legal battle. Now you have the India head of the e-commerce giant being summoned. What Amazon is saying that these executives are not even connected to the future Amazon deal, to the transaction. So why are they being summoned? That is where they are saying the point of harassment comes in. And also, doesn't it go against the Prime Minister's idea of creating ease of business? Doesn't this tarnish India's image of how a global entity is having to go through these legal tangles in India?
Yes, of course, if they are not connected with the business or with the transaction, of course, they should have not been summoned. But they can also file a reply before the investigating agency. Yes, we are not at all connected with the present matter, especially the deal. So you can summon the persons who are dealing with the matter. So they can be exempted by the investigating agency by summoning other person who is really connected with the matter or dealing with the matter. So here they are right. If somebody, you see, for example, Mukesh Ambani ji is not dealing each and everything. He has deputed the persons, allocated the duties, and for that purpose, here Amazon is absolutely right. If the executive who are particularly being summoned by the investigating agency, who are not connected, they can be exempted, and they should also file an application before the investigating agency. Yes, we are not connected with the matter, such and such people are connected. You can summon them, they can supply the documents, whatever the information they require, they can. Otherwise, they can't summon each and everybody. It is also basic law of the land that the person can't be summoned, can't be tried in the court who is not day-to-day in charge of the business or not dealing with the business, and he should be in charge of the business day-to-day dealings of the business.
And Dr. Duggal, I'm interrupting you here. We have to cut into breaking news information coming in. Extremely sorry, apologize for that.